Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hello, Gertrude. Thank you so much for having me on Her Story. My name is Alexander-Sieder, and I am an American who's been living in Germany for 30 years, in Munich, to be exact. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope you enjoy my story, which I will tell you now. So my son and I had a standing movie date on Fridays since he was a tiny little boy. We used to go to the English language theater in Munich and catch just whatever happened to be playing. And this was our special thing. It was our ritual. His dad didn't like movies, but we loved them. English was our mother tongue, and he was my little American boy living in Bavaria, living and growing up in Bavaria. And those Friday nights were how we stayed connected to that part of ourselves. And honestly, he was also my movie partner because I didn't really have a lot of other people to go to the movies with. I've always been a one-on-one, intense relationship kind of a person, and not a let's join the English, language movie club kind of a person. So flash forward, it's now Thursday night, and my son is 16. And he comes to me and he says, "Mama, do you mind if I hang out with my friends tomorrow instead of going to the movies with you?" And this was just a dagger in my heart. I knew this day was coming, of course, and I wanted this day to come. I want a healthy child. And yet it was really kind of bittersweet. I just love my son so much, as I'm sure all mothers do. And so much of my life had been all about him. Everything was him. And that weekend, my husband was also going out of town. I think he was on a golf trip or something. And all of a sudden, I realized I had the entire weekend to myself to do with as I pleased. And I hadn't thought about what I wanted to do in 17 years. 17 years ago, I had walked away from a fairly successful acting career in Chicago to move to Germany and start my family. So for the last decade and a half, I had always been kind of thinking about it in terms of what do we want to do? What are we going to have to dinner? What are we going to do this weekend? Everything was we. And for the first time in all that time, I had a minute to think about what I wanted to do. Just me. And it turns out I wanted to see if there was an acting workshop around because that's my idea of a good time. So I just sat down and I Googled acting workshop Munich English. And lo and behold, there was one starting the very next day. There was a coach out of LA, and there was one seat open. So I whipped out my credit card, I signed up for it, and I went the next morning with very high hopes and very low expectations. I had hoped it would feel like it used to, cathartic and connecting. Like I had so much that I could pour into every scene. Art gives you the ability to take the ugly and make it a source of beauty and connection. And this workshop turns out that it combusted a small flame I didn't even know was still burning. It was everything I had hoped it would be. And suddenly I realized I had been trying to breathe underwater for 17 years. And this exposing all of my big, raw, ugly emotions with other people whose idea of a good time was doing the very same thing. This was exactly where I needed to be. It was my element. And by Sunday evening, I knew that there was no going back to pretending that this part of me didn't exist anymore. So I'm driving home from that workshop and I'm buzzing, but I'm also terrified because now these questions I'd been avoiding for 17 years were staring me in the face. Is it too late? What is my life's purpose? Was it just to be a mom, or is there something beyond that? Because I knew what I wanted. I wanted to relaunch my acting career. But here's what I'd been telling myself for 17 years. You had your chance. You walked away. Good mothers don't get second acts. You made your choice. And when I looked at relaunching my acting career, what that would actually take, the mountain of challenges in front of me was just enormous. I had no current show reel material, no connections, no clue, and frankly, no idea where to even start. If this were a movie, they would cast someone younger to play me trying to get cast. And that's when it hit me. Nobody was coming to save me. Good. No director was going to discover me at the grocery store. No agent was going to come knocking on my door. If I wanted this, I was going to have to build it for myself. And that task, relaunching my acting career, it just seemed monumental. But maybe if I could pull it apart into smaller pieces and solve them one at a time, I could actually do this. So the first gap was training. That workshop lit the fire, but I was still a long way off from feeling like my skills were where they needed to be and where my confidence needed to be. So I realized that if I wanted to make this work, I was going to need to get more training. But there was a slight problem because the good coaches were definitely not in Munich. But the problem I have found always also presents the solution. And the answer was I would just have to bring the coaches to me. So I convinced a fantastic coach out of London to come, and I filled the room with other actors who also needed the same thing. And just like that, I'd organized my very first workshop. And it ended up selling out. It was a huge hit where I got my training for free and even made a little bit of money. But more importantly, that first workshop showed me something really crucial. I could get what I needed when and how I needed it. So I kept going. I started bringing in coaches 2, 3 times a month for the next 18 months. I would bring in coaches from LA, London, New York. And until I finally realized I was ready to look for an agent, which of course presented the next challenge, footage. I had none, and I needed a show reel in order to show that I could act. But so did everybody else that I'd been training with. So I organized an event around that. I found a director, I found a DOP, someone to handle the audio, and an editor. And there were 12 of us actors, and we all got 2 professional scenes out of it. And then I started to see this pattern. Every challenge or gap wasn't something keeping me from what I wanted. It was actually my starting point. And here's what I finally understood. All of those things that I thought were wrong about my situation, they were my superpowers. 47 wasn't too old, it meant I had clarity. I knew exactly what mattered. I knew how to persevere. Being an American in Munich wasn't a disadvantage, it made me unique. Having no connections meant I got to build them my way. And having no real, that meant I got to create exactly what I needed and bring in 11 other actors with me. So, whatever you think is holding you back, that almost always turns out to be your zone of genius, your superpower. But you won't know how to activate it until you start asking the right questions. And you can only ask questions based on where you are now and what you know now. The next set of questions present themselves when you get a little bit further down the road. So, over time, this combination of everything that I'd been doing, the training, the footage, the network I was building, it started to open doors. I started to get interesting auditions. I started to get booked with studios like Hallmark, Netflix, A24. And other actors started noticing and asking, how'd you do that? And that's when I realized that this wasn't just my story, because here's what I've learned. We have been conditioned to wait for the right opportunity, to wait to be discovered, to wait for someone to give us permission, to wait until we are ready. We wait for the agent to call. We wait for a producer to notice the perfect moment to arrive. But here's what happens when we wait. We give away all of our power. We put the responsibility for our success outside of ourselves, on the industry, on timing, on luck, on someone else recognizing our value. And as long as the problem is out there, we can't solve it. But what if nobody's coming? What if the perfect moment is now, when you have the gap, the need, the problem staring you in the face? Because here's what I discovered. The only things we can actually control are our thoughts, our actions, and our perceptions. And that is so much. When I stopped waiting and started asking, how can I use what's missing to build what I need? Everything changed. Because whatever you think is standing in your way, that's not blocking you. That's showing you exactly where to start. So here's what that looks like practically. First, figure out what you really want, not what you think you should want, but what you want, and then set that as your destination. Second, look at what you need to get one step closer to that end goal. What is your gap? What's missing? And third, ask yourself, what can I build, create, or organize to fill that gap? When I think back to that Thursday, um, when my son was asking for his freedom, I see it clearly now. He wasn't pulling away. He was handing me back my own life. And what looked like an ending was actually a beginning. So if you are standing in that same quiet, wondering, is it too late? What's my purpose now? I want you to know something. It is not too late. Your story isn't over. And whatever you think is standing in your way, that is not the obstacle. That is your starting point. So don't wait for someone to hand you permission. Look at what's in front of you, break it down, then build what's missing. Because your fire isn't gone, it's just waiting for you to strike the match.
Oh my gosh. Your story just lights me up in a very, very strange way. I love it when women reclaim their lives. I love it when women turn problems into opportunities. And that's exactly what you've done with your life and recreating yourself at
Thank
a later
you.
age. It's just inspiring and absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
So you came out on top of all of this. And how did motherhood shape your identity as a creative woman?
Hmm. That's such an interesting question. From the time I was a little girl, I wanted to be a mom. I've always been really, really maternal. I'm the oldest of four girls. How it shaped me, I think it teaches you that you are not the most important thing. Honestly, I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned as a mom, because before that, I think I sort of went through life thinking, this is my story, my story, my story. And it wasn't until I was part of somebody else's life who meant more to me than I mean to myself, that I realized that we are all connected, and it's these connections that are, I think, truly important. And I know for me, connection is a big driver in terms of my creativity, in terms of hoping to reach someone else through storytelling in some way, to make an impact in some way, to turn what may be painful, what may be difficult, into something that people see opportunity and hope in. I don't know if that answers your question, but
It really does. So, what were the main fears that you had to overcome at 47? And how did you overcome them? Starting
mm,
off at 47 in a career that you loved.
yeah. Well, I think even, 47 is a difficult age for women regardless, just
Yes.
because of society and everything. But in acting, really, I had to come to terms with what it meant, because when I left the industry, I was in my late 20s. I was doing pretty well. I didn't have to have another job. I was earning my money through my acting. I was SAG-AFTRA, even had my health insurance paid for, which is a big deal in America.
Mhm.
Um, but at 47, I had to really overcome my fears, my doubts, my insecurities about
Yeah.
what that means in the world. Who am I? What it means, because part of being an actor is, like, do people want you? And I don't just mean want you physically, but that is part of it. And that had been a part of my identity when I was younger, was sort of playing those kind of roles. And now it
Mhm.
was like, well, that's done. Those doors are closed. Now what? So it was really, really trying to come to terms with who I am and accepting where I'm at. And a friend of mine really helped me with this. She, one day when I had been sort of struggling out loud with, like, what am I? Who am I? Well, how am I supposed to, where do I belong in this industry? Do I belong? And she just said, you're a character actor now. And that gives you so much freedom. And it really did open this door for me.
Right.
And sometimes you need that. You just need someone to show you a different perspective.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. So, how did you come up with the idea for the curator method? And tell us a little bit of what that all means.
Really, I didn't give it a name until, honestly, this year, even though I've been doing this for 15 years.
Mm,
And really, it started with that very first workshop. And that very first workshop was kind of like an epiphany moment for me, realizing that I could take what I needed and
mm,
turn this into not only the answer to that, not only get myself what I needed, but do it in a way that didn't cost me anything and actually, gave me income. I think I earned 1,400 euros from that very first workshop that I did.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it really was. And it was, And then, so I had no intention of continuing that. After the 18 months were over, I was like, okay, done,
Yeah.
goal achieved. I now feel like my skills are back where they should be, and my confidence is where it should be. And I'll just take workshops from other people, when the need arises.
Mm.
But then the next problem later on, a few years into, after having relaunched my acting career, I noticed I was getting typecast a lot. And
Right.
I realized that the problem was they weren't seeing all of me. They were only seeing me superficially. And
Right.
so the answer to that was to show them that there were other parts to me.
Mm.
And so I decided to create a short film once a month and put that out there, just start putting out content basically.
Yeah.
And even though I knew a lot of, people who were willing to donate their time and talent, still creating a short film is expensive. So I started doing the workshops just to finance the films. I wasn't even participating. So that was also sort of like a aha, okay, so I can use them this way. And then finally, a few years after that, I realized that I was going to all these networking events, film premieres, festivals, those kind of things. And I was just another actor clamoring for people's attention, for the
Yes.
casting director's attention, for the director's attention. And first of all, it just doesn't sit well with me. I don't like being that feeling of being
Yeah.
needy in that way. And I wanted to find a way to get at eye level with decision
Yes.
makers. And I knew that I couldn't do that if I was just approaching them from a place of, what can you give me? Please give me something. Please pay attention to me. And so I thought, well, what if I hired them? I'm literally giving them something of value, money. I'm also giving them a platform. And other actors are also getting something out of it because they're able to meet them then in a much more intimate settings where they can get their questions answered and get their eyes on their work. And so I
Mm.
started creating workshops with casting directors, producers, those kinds of things. And that's kind of what I call the third phase of the curator method. And it wasn't until honestly this year, I had been thinking about teaching this for a while, but I
Yes.
wasn't sure what that looked like,
Right.
um, until I started to slowly put it together, and I launched the Curator Academy in June of this year.
And you created this win-win situation for all of the participants. It's just incredible. Everybody got something out of it.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
what are some of the biggest mindset shifts that help you transition from lost to limitless?
Mm. I think one of the first ones is, we have to all realize that we all have so much more in common than not. And so if you're feeling afraid, and I was, know that everybody else is feeling that too,
Yes.
and that it doesn't go away. You just you need to learn to make friends with it. I've come to think of my fear kind of as a helicopter mom. It's like,
Right.
stop buzzing around me. It's okay. I'm going to live. If I fall down, I can dust off my knees and get back up. Whereas when I was younger, fear to me was this monster that would stand in front of me and bully me. You're going to fail. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And now, just by seeing it differently, I can
Yeah.
accept it and let it be there and not bully me. And I think that was a huge thing. And, the hardest thing any of us do is just get started.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that is so much of everything. Just start taking steps, doing something towards what you want, something meaningful, not something that looks like something, but
Yeah.
do something meaningful towards what you want. And the next challenge, questions, whatever it is, it will
Mm.
present itself. It's like when you're a ship on the ocean, you can only see as far as your event horizon.
Yeah.
But as you keep traveling, it keeps changing. And if you think of that event horizon as the place where the challenges are, where the questions are, you're
Yeah,
going to be able to encounter them and get them answered. You just have to stop thinking that they're not a wall, they are an
yeah.
invitation.
And what I love about this whole analogy you've given us is that we all hear that voice, and fighting against it doesn't help. Talking with it, negotiating with it, acknowledging it does. Because everything we do want is on the other side of fear. And that's your
Yeah,
ego trying to protect you from getting hurt, from making a mistake,
yeah.
recognizing what the voice actually is and saying, hey, I know, I love you. Thank you for looking out for me, but I've got to get on the other side of this because that's where my goal is. So you have to find that fine balance and a dance, right?
Absolutely. I always say your big, beautiful dreams, they are not inside of your comfort zone. If they were, you
You would.
wouldn't be having them, right? So you've got to stretch. But the great thing about the comfort zone is it's not a rubber band. It doesn't bounce back to where it was once you've stretched it. It just continues to infinitely stretch. And
Wow.
you build that confidence in yourself and what you're capable of. And that you eventually know that whatever comes my way, I can deal with this. I can handle this. I can figure it out.
I love it. So, how did you turn collaboration into a business model for yourself and others?
Well, it was, I guess the way anybody would turn any sort of a coaching program into a business model. But really, what I realized, the thing that was stopping most people was, first of all, the clarity of
Mhm.
understanding what they actually need. So
Yes.
oftentimes people don't understand what they need to actually get closer to their destination, to their goals.
Mm,
And so helping them to understand how to use both sides of their brains, because I
yes.
deal with a lot of creative people. They can be so creative when it comes to their craft, their art, whatever it is that they're into. But as soon as it comes to turning that creativity towards business, it's like, oh, business. Yuck.
Whole
Don't want
different
to.
thing.
Yeah. And
Mm,
so it's we need, but even in creativity, we need containers. We need some rules. We need that because it forces us to think differently. How can I deal with this? And that's a huge part of it. The other thing is the program, the Curator Academy, is all about doing. There is nothing theoretical in it. So by the
wow.
time, you come to me with, I would like to be a published author or whatever it may happen to be that you want to do. And we figure out what is that thing that you are missing to get
Mm,
closer to that. Because for one person, it may be they need to edit. For the next person, it may be they're looking for an agent. For someone else, they may want to self publish. So, what
yeah.
does that look like for you? Understanding really what you want and then figuring out what you need to get there. And then by the end of, the first 8 weeks, I would say getting that first event, workshop, seminar, whatever it is, off the ground is always the most difficult because you are setting up a little mini business.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
by the end of the 8 weeks, I literally walk them through it so that they are launching their thing with support.
Yes.
And then they can come back and say, okay, that was that, and now what? And then we figure out the next step. And
Yeah.
eventually, what it teaches them is how to how to deal with their own challenges themselves. And eventually, they need me less and less, and then they go off and do their thing.
So, how did you land your first Netflix or Hallmark role? And what did that feel like after so many years away from the set?
It was an audition, just, like any other. And, as actors, we do a lot of auditioning. And, what I always say is, record it and forget it. Because if you keep thinking, oh, what's going to happen with that? What's going to happen with that? And often, most of the time, nothing happens with that. So it was just another audition that I had done, and I think, let's see, for the Netflix series, it was Mo, and I had taped it a couple of months before
Right.
and forgotten about it. And then all of a sudden they're like, you booked it. I was like, I booked what? Like that, I didn't even know. So that was that. And that was great. I think at that point I had already done the Hallmark movie. I did a Hallmark Christmas movie.
That's exciting.
It was fun. Yeah.
Love it. My last question for you is, if you could go back and have a conversation with the younger you, this younger woman who was stepping back into the world of acting, had been out of commission for a while, was fearful, unsure what to do. If you could go back and give yourself 3 nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3?
One is, don't let fear stand in your way. Everybody has fear, and you just have to learn to walk with it. 2 is to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it's in the discomfort where we grow, where we are stretching ourselves, where we are making progress, even if it doesn't always feel that way. And 3 is, you are so much more powerful than you think, and so much more in control of your destiny than you think.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Now, is there any question I should have asked you and I didn't before we close?
I don't think so. I think you covered it pretty well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming online and sharing this amazing story. You've really inspired me to finish writing my movie script and
Oh, good.
start doing it
Yeah.
again. Very,
Yeah.
very inspiring. And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are an aspiring actress, it doesn't matter how old you are. If that is your vision and your dream, take the first step. And the first step would be to go onto this website. I have actbold.com at the bottom of the screen. Reach out, get some help and support. It doesn't have to be difficult. You don't have to do it on your own.
I also want to say, it's actually not, the Curator Academy is not just for actors. It's for all creatives, because you can apply the Curator Method to really any problem, whether you're an author, a painter, a sculptor. I have people who, one of my clients is in Bulgaria, and she's super into Japanese culture and wants to learn more about that.
Wow.
So really know that whatever you're into, you only need a handful of other people to make it work, to curate your own path and begin to make your own connections through those through what you are curating. So it really works pretty much for anything.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will be back again tomorrow, everybody, with yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you so much for the interview.
Thank you so much for having me on Her Story. It was a real pleasure.
Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share voices from all walks of life, come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story imagining a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story.